duty, where he sacrificed.
Before dragons started dropping out of the sky, before brothers turned against brothers, before Westeros became one giant family therapy session with fire-breathing nukes, everything started because of one question. Who sits on the Iron Throne? And in House of the Dragon, that question destroys everything. Because Season 1 wasn't just people flying dragons and looking cool. This was basically the world's most dangerous family argument, except instead of throwing plates at dinner, these people throw dragons. So, with Season 3 about to dive straight into war, here's everything you need to remember, because things are about to get messy. Very messy. We begin almost 200 years before Game of Thrones. And, unlike the world we knew in Game of Thrones, the Targaryens here are at their absolute peak. They've got dragons, they've got power, they've got money, they've got silver hair. Basically, they're walking around thinking they're the main characters of reality itself. King Jaehaerys Targaryen sits on the throne, but there's one huge problem. No male heir. And apparently in Westeros, people hear powerful woman and suddenly start acting allergic. So, a great council is held to decide who should inherit the throne. Princess Rhaenys technically has the stronger claim, but nope. Westeros says, cool story, anyway, let's give it to a man. So, the throne goes to Viserys Targaryen. And that decision? Yeah, remember that. Because that single choice basically lights the fuse for everything that comes later. Years later, King Viserys rules Westeros. He's not a terrible king. He's kind. He wants peace. He loves his family. The problem is, the man avoids conflict like he owes it money. Viserys desperately wants a son to inherit the throne, but instead, his closest heir becomes his younger brother Daemon. And Daemon is... how do I even explain Daemon? Imagine giving unlimited confidence, chaos, and dragon riding abilities to someone who wakes up every morning and chooses violence. That's Daemon. Otto Hightower, the Hand of the King, absolutely hates him. Because Otto sees Daemon exactly for what he is, a walking disaster with white hair. Meanwhile, Viserys' wife, Queen Aemma, becomes pregnant again, and Viserys becomes obsessed. This has to be his son. This has to be the future. So he throws a massive tournament to celebrate, and during all this, we're introduced to young Rhaenyra and Alicent, best friends. Remember that too, because this friendship gets absolutely murdered later. Also entering the picture, Criston Cole. And at first, this guy looks like your classic honorable knight. About that, we'll get there. Things take a dark turn fast. Queen Aemma suffers complications during childbirth. Viserys is forced into an impossible choice. Save the mother or save the child. And he chooses the baby. A decision that kills Aemma. And then somehow, the baby dies too. So Viserys loses his wife, loses his son, and gains enough emotional damage for the rest of the season. Then Daemon makes the biggest mistake imaginable. He mocks the dead child as heir for a day. Viserys absolutely loses it. Daemon gets banished, and suddenly, Viserys names Rhaenyra as heir to the Iron Throne. Not Daemon, his daughter. Now here's where things start quietly becoming a disaster. Because publicly, everyone bends the knee and accepts Rhaenyra. But privately, half of Westeros basically says, a woman on the throne? And you can practically hear future problems being born. Meanwhile, Otto Hightower starts playing chess while everybody else is still learning checkers. He tells his daughter Alicent to spend time comforting the grieving king. And Viserys eventually marries Alicent. And just like that, boom, friendship over. Rhaenyra and Alicent go from best friends to future enemies. Time jumps forward and Daemon's out fighting in the Stepstones, proving he's still an absolute menace in battle. Back in King's Landing, Alicent now has children with Viserys. Most importantly, Aegon. And suddenly, people begin asking the obvious question. Wait, if the king has a son now, shouldn't he inherit the throne? Viserys says no. Rhaenyra remains heir. But Otto? Otto starts seeing opportunities. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra has zero interest in political marriage. She wants freedom. She wants adventure. She wants literally anything except listening to old men at council meetings. Then, Daemon shows back up and starts influencing her again. And let's just say, their relationship starts entering very weird territory. Very Targaryen territory. Rhaenyra eventually sleeps with Criston Cole. Huge mistake. Massive mistake. Because Criston catches feelings. The guy basically says, "Let's run away together." Rhaenyra responds with, "Or you could just secretly be my side guy." And Criston's heart shatters into a million pieces. And from that moment onward, this dude becomes Westeros's #1 professional hater. Rhaenyra eventually marries Laenor Velaryon, but both of them know the truth. Laenor likes men. Rhaenyra likes not Laenor. So they basically create a political partnership instead of a real marriage. Fast forward again. Rhaenyra now has 3 children: Jace, Luke, Joffrey. Only problem? These kids look absolutely nothing like Laenor. Not even slightly. Everybody knows Harwin Strong is probably the father. Everybody. But nobody can say it openly. Because calling the future queen's children bastards is basically a speed run toward execution. Meanwhile, Alicent is becoming more paranoid by the day. Otto fills her head with fear. He convinces her that if Rhaenyra becomes queen, Aegon and her children will eventually die. So now both sides begin building teams. And just like that, the Greens versus the Blacks. Pick your fighter. Then Daemon and Rhaenyra reunite. Both grieving, both older, both still having terrifying chemistry. So naturally, they get married. Because apparently family trees for Targaryens are more like family circles. Years later, King Viserys is basically falling apart physically. The man's body is losing a battle against time itself. But despite everything, one of the most emotional moments of the season happens here. Viserys drags himself into the throne room, barely able to walk, barely able to breathe. And then Daemon helps his brother put the crown back on his head. No jokes, no insults, no schemes, just 2 brothers. That scene hit hard, because underneath all the chaos, they still loved each other. Then comes the dinner scene. For one brief moment, everything feels fixed. People smile, people laugh. Family feels like family again. And then Aemond opens his mouth. Of course. Because this dude wakes up every morning and asks, "How can I create problems today?" He calls Rhaenyra's children bastards. Fight breaks out. Peace gone. Again. That night, Viserys dies. But here's the tragedy. He's talking about Aegon's prophecy, thinking he's speaking to Rhaenyra. Instead, Alicent hears him and completely misunderstands everything. She believes Viserys wanted Aegon to become king. And that misunderstanding changes history. The Greens move fast, like suspiciously fast. Meetings start happening, plans start moving, people refusing loyalty suddenly start disappearing. Criston Cole straight up kills a council member. Aegon gets crowned king. And Rhaenyra? She doesn't even know yet. Then the news reaches Dragonstone. Viserys is dead. The throne has been stolen. War is coming. Rhaenyra goes into labor from the shock and loses her child. And now, there's no going back. No fixing things. No family dinners. No peace. But then comes the moment that changes everything. Rhaenyra sends her son Luke as a messenger. Simple mission. Fly there, get support, come back home. Easy. Except Aemond is already there, waiting. And remember, Luke took his eye years ago. On that same night, Aemond claimed Vhagar, the oldest, biggest, and most powerful dragon. But now, Aemond wants revenge. He chases Luke through a massive storm on Vhagar. And at first, it almost feels like he's just trying to scare him. Then suddenly, things spiral out of control. Dragons stop listening, Vhagar attacks, and in one horrifying moment, Luke and his dragon are gone. Season 1 ends with Rhaenyra receiving the news. She turns around slowly. No screaming, no speech, no tears, just pure rage. And that final look says everything, because at that moment, the fight for the Iron Throne officially becomes war. The Dance of Dragons has begun. Thanks for hanging out on this breakdown. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more House of the Dragon videos.